on the Walking in Aloha Let's Talk Story podcast. A little glitch gremlins got us, and we are here again with Sarah. That's what we just do, and the lovely world of being live. So we just go with the flow. Thank you for being patient with me, Sarah. And so, how is it in Australia?
We're just entering the beautiful spring, and the downside is a lot of people start having hay fever with a lot like with the pollination and things like that. But other than that, it's just some like very springy weather in Australia right now. I know Hawaii always has lovely weather. That is one of the places that I always want to go visit one day.
Oh, well, yeah, you're going to have to. I want to really plan on a speakers convention or some kind of a summit of some sort. And I am looking at like maybe next year in April or October. So maybe let's try to see if you can come by then in next year. That would be lovely.
Awesome,
Anyway,
amazing.
so glad to have you. Oh, you have done so much, and I know that you were on. Sorry for the clinking of my glass with my glass straw. Um, the top 50 in the next top speaker, and that is just so amazing. But there's so much more that you do, and I wanted to just go over some of the questions that we had with the Aloha Always framework. So the Aloha Always, I always try to do the Aloha Always framework because the way that I looked at it, um, aloha has so many meanings in Hawaii. You know, people say hello and goodbye, and um, it just has so many more meanings than just a greeting. It's a way of living. It's a way of life for us in Hawaii, and I was born and raised here in Hawaii, and we were taught to live aloha. So when you say live aloha, you can't just say live hello and goodbye. That's aloha is love, aloha is respect, and aloha is, you know, just the way that you treat other people. And
Mm-hmm.
when I was writing my book, I prayed. Walking in Aloha came from a prayer, and I said, Lord, if you need me to write my book, I don't know how to write a book. I never wrote a book before. I need your help. And that's
Mm-hmm.
when he said, I gave you everything in Aloha. And the more that I spoke to people, I realized that it wasn't just me that was walked through aloha. I see it in everyone else, that people have gotten through a lot through the affirmations and actions, leadership and love, overcoming obstacles, and health and healing. So I was like, Lord, that is so good because now I can see that in so many other people. And that's why I come on now and I share that with others. And I love the fact that people can share what they do and the Aloha framework with the world. So
Mm.
that's why I'm so glad to have you on so that you can share what you do and the Aloha Always framework. So you are a Shema coach, right? Could you give us a little bit about that first before we start with the questions?
Yep, of course. So Shema is actually a Hebrew word. So is in when I take it out from the religious meaning, it's been just going listening to the whole being and respond with action. So what does that mean is you as a coach, you always want to have some sort of going back to your inner being. That's why I say always lead from the deep. And once you know who you are, what you do, and you respond with action, that's exactly what we do.
That is so good. Yeah, leading from the deep, you know. So, like in affirmations and actions, you teach
Mm-hmm.
that stillness is the hidden engine of leadership. The affirmations are inner reflections to help
Mhm.
start your day. What
Yes.
affirmations or inner reflections that help you start and ground in your purposes?
For me, is waking up in the morning and go for a walk. So I believe the when you soak yourself in your natural environment, in fact, research have mentioned 20 minutes in the natural environment can lower your cortisol, and and you'll be able to reduce your stress hormone. So I desired, like, particularly when it's sunny days in the morning, I went out, I put my AirPod on. Often it's calm, relaxing, soaking music. I can spend time with the Lord, or I listen to the Bible verse on my mobile, or even sometimes it will be just like preaching, so I can get my head right before I start my busy day.
Oh, that is so good. Oh, you said Bible verse. What is one of your favorite Bible verses? I'd like to know.
Oh, one of my Bible verses: "Be still and know your." And that's why this is the first step, like in Shema coaching. And I believe in a world of hustling, that you need to toil and to work really hard, and actually losing your inner peace is quite sad. And in fact, when we are redeemed by Jesus, we don't we still need to do our best. We need to strive for excellence, but the inner motivation is actually has changed, and it becomes, you have the inner stillness and peace in you.
Oh, that is so good. That inner stillness. When Jesus was on the water and he was saying, like, be still, right? The waves and all of that. And it's like, how can you be sleeping, Master? Right? He's on the boat and they're like, they're all panicking. And they're like, how can you be sleeping? And sometimes, even in myself, things get chaotic, right? Things get
Mm,
chaotic, and you're like, everything is in a turmoil. And then I get this sense of peace, and
mhm,
I have to ask myself, like, Master, how can you be sleeping? you know, because
mhm,
I can sense that peace and that calm, and I'm like, ah, how can you be sleeping? But it's because, we have to focus on who is the one that controls the storm, not focus on the storm, right?
mm.
That is
That is
so,
so
so
true.
good. So good. And how can listeners turn moments of pause into purposeful action in their leadership or daily life?
That's a really good question. When I'm coaching leaders, often one of the challenges I will give them, if they choose to accept, is 15 minutes being still every day, absolutely doing nothing. Because as leaders, we are always full of our work, our commitment, our responsibility, where our minds are always churning and churning. But having a moment of just simply breathing and being aware of your current state has so much support to our brain and the way how we think. And in fact, in science, we've talked about, like, just doing nothing sometimes activate different part of your brain. It's like a DNM mode, and is so important for us to practice being still. And often I will share tips with leaders that they can even do box breathing, or they breathe, do deep depth breathing from the breathing to the abdominal or belly, and they will be able to regulate the nervous system.
So you mentioned box breathing, and and I've heard of
Mhm.
box breathing. But what is domino breathing?
Abdominal. So you know when you breathe in, sometimes we are breathing into our chest. So it's quite shallow breathing, and you want to have a deep breathing. No, sorry, it's not. It's the diaphragm. Sorry, it was my bad. Like it's the diaphragm breathing into the diaphragm. Like when you sing, right? You breathe in the diaphragm, and this is the way how
Yes.
you have a conscious breathing coming in.
You breathing lower down in your
Yes,
diaphragm.
yes.
Okay. And then the box breathing, is it the one that you breathe and you hold your breath? Could you walk us through that?
Sure. So what will happen is when you breathe in, you imagine you're drawing a box. So let's say you close your eyes and you breathe in, and you imagine there's a line traveling through to one corner, and then the line is turning to the another side, and it's going down. You just breathe in, pause, and breathe out, and pause. So then it's now become a box that has been drawn in your mind.
I see. Okay. In those intentional breathing, sometimes we forget, taking those deep breaths. And this weekend, I've been in the Tony Robbins Unleash the Power Within, and
Mm-hmm.
um, Joseph McClendon, I think his name is, um, he was talking about breathing, and he brought a couple of people on the stage because he was like, okay, everyone take a deep breath, let it out, take a deep breath. And he brought people up on the stage and he showed the way they were breathing. And he was saying, okay, what do you see about these people? And then he goes, okay, yeah, you see them breathe and their shoulders go back and they get a little taller and their stomach goes in and all this stuff, right? And
Mm-hmm.
he was saying, like how you said, when you breathe in, that's a shallow part of your breathing. And where you don't think about it, if you're breathing in more into your belly part, that's a deeper breathing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like he was saying that if you're just breathing in the top part, it's not filling your whole lungs or something like that. You're not filling. So I was like, people don't think about it. You think you're taking a deep breath, but you're really not. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, that's amazing because we don't really think about it until you consciously put your mind into, like you said, drawing the box and
Yes.
with your breath. So that is so good. Yeah. And it's all into that. But we'll get into the health and healing part.
Mm-hmm.
So love and leadership, the leadership and love, in the L, you help leaders lead with heart,
Mm-hmm.
not just direction. How
Yes.
do love and empathy transform the way we guide others?
Wow, that's multiple ways. I think another thing is about knowing yourself. Like knowing yourself is so important. In after you being still, you're a lot more. You had clarity into who you are. You can hear your inner value, and
Mhm.
once you have that value aligned, you'll be able to have a congruency between you and others. That's how you'll achieve breakthrough in interpersonal relationship, particularly as a leader. So at work, often we found communicating with one another can be quite challenging because we're having trouble to say the right things, or we're scared about how people perceive us. But when we are so clear about who we are as a person, and we know where we want to go, we know the vision, we know the impact that we are making to people, then we are able to attract people to come along. But as a leader, if you don't know where you want to go, how would you expect people to follow you? Because they literally follow you not knowing where, like they get so confused. you are confused and they're confused as well. And when this confusion arises, it's really hard to have a genuine relationship. There's lacking trust and everything's falling apart.
Yeah, that is so true. Because they can see it in you, when you're trying to lead from a place of uncertainty, they see it in you already. And then it's like, well, if you're not certain where you're going, then how can we be okay with following you?
Mm-hmm.
And I hate to say it, but sometimes, you see that in places of employment, where, places where you should have that direct leader, and you're like, huh, what's going on here? I don't know, and so it always starts from the top, right? You need to be able to have that person. So that is
Mm-hmm.
really good. Can you share a time when choosing compassion over control led to breakthrough results for yourself or someone you coached?
Compassion over control. Wow. There's a lot of different examples that I can share. One of the, I would say, I will start with myself, having self compassion. Would that be okay if I share about like my stories?
Yeah, yeah.
And because I believe leadership starts from leading yourself, leading from within. And often we are our worst enemies. We're being overly like we're sabotaging ourselves, or we're criticizing ourselves sometimes for no reason, or the reason is not real. It could be lies or belief that we have had holding in our life. And I was one of the victims. For some time, I set a lot of unrealistic goals, or goals that actually I don't own it, but because of my environment or society or what I perceive a success person should be, and I'm using it for myself, which means I want the complete control. But however, as you know, life is not like that. In 2020, when I was made redundant, I lose control of my career. I felt like I was a complete failure. I felt like I couldn't tick any of the boxes that you're supposed to become a successful leaders or professionals in your field. Excuse me. And I was turning 30 on that year, and in as an Asian, a lot of people expect you get married by the time you your 30s, you get your own house, you have a kid, but I had literally none of them. And that's become a moment that I realized I can't control, like, or at least in my own way. And I need to have more compassion of myself, accepting where am I and who am I as a person. That was a pivotal moment for me.
Mm.
And because of that period of going deep into my identity and who am I as a person, as someone created by the love of God, it transformed me. It changing myself from the inside out. And now I'm no longer wanting to chase the the professional title or the sort of success that people have listed by others, but I actually would like to create my own journey and create my own journey with the presence of God and with the Holy Spirit.
That is beautiful. I There's so many people out in the world that could take that lead from you, and follow that, because so many people, they see others and they're like, oh, I want to be like that. But
Mm,
for them to realize that, no, I want to be my own person, I want to, follow God's lead. And
mm,
that is where we truly should be, because we are all called by God, and
mm,
as individuals, we shouldn't compare ourselves to other people, but know that in our own unique way, God is calling us to something that is unique. And so
Mm,
that is so beautiful for you to know that, that's what you want to do. And like I said, there's so many people out there that can absolutely follow your lead.
mhm,
So wonderful,
mhm.
wonderful.
That's
So
exactly what I meant. Right? Once you have stillness, so when you're constantly on the move, it's hard to see it clearly. And once you're being still, you're able to explore your inner self. And by exploring your inner self, you get a lot more solid grounding on who you are, and you get to express in a way that align to your inner beauty.
fantastic. That is so good. You know, like I just mentioned, people, there's so much in the world that, I want to be like this, or I want to be like that. And all those obstacles that we basically sometimes, it's not even walls that is truly there, but walls that we pretty much put up on our own, in our
Mhm,
own mind, or things that, those limiting beliefs, those
mm,
obstacles, right? So
mhm,
that is a perfect segue into our next um, category, which is overcoming obstacles. Because many of
mm,
us push ourselves past that burnout stage.
mm,
I have to say that I have to be careful, even for myself. What
mm,
helped you personally shift from striving into thriving?
mm. Wow. It's such a great question. It reminds me of what happened with me personally because I had a lived experience of burnout 5 years ago. And what got me out of it is, first of all, being still. I take a chunk of time to just rest. Because when I was made redundant in early 2020, it was the lockdown period. So I realized even how hard I tried to look for the next job, no one was hiring because the world literally don't know what is happening at that time. So rather than trying to bang my head against the wall, I pray and ask God, and the God said, just rest. And I did. So what I did is I spent a lot of time worshiping at home. I spent a lot of time reading the Word of God, and I started picking up some of my interests, like yourself. I love painting. I love art. I'm a very sensory type of person. I even found my new interest during COVID is essential oil, trying to use like faith, use understanding the science behind essential oils and how does it work on our brain and our emotions and our well-being. So I just opened a new world for myself. And at on those journeys, I realized through exploration, you can get to know yourself. And often when we don't explore enough, you don't know what actually we are passionate about. And this is so important for us. And particularly when you say from to how to strive, right? I would say exploring your talent, exploring what you love, exploring your passion, exploring your purpose. So those are the things through experiment, one step at a time, or you just exploring different ways, so you'll be able to really have a sense of what I would like to take for a season of my life.
That is so good. Because as I'm a creative myself, and it's true. It's so nice to slow down and be able to create, because when you're so busy, you can't even find the time to pick up a brush, right? You can't even find the time. And I love essential oils also. And there was one time when I was working at the school, and I
Mhm.
actually had to ask my cousin, because I was working with 3, 4 year olds, and they were just like, you everywhere. And I was having a harder time getting them down for naps. And we would always be like, can you lay down? And then you have to go to the next one and lay down. And we're like bouncing around all these little ones trying to get them to lay down. And I was like, it was just struggle after struggle. And I
Mm,
thought about essential oils, and
mm,
we were able to use the oils in the classroom. And I was like, wait a moment, if I used lavender in the classroom, perhaps I could get them to calm down instead of fighting them to lay down.
mm,
And so I used lavender in the diffuser, and then they were like able to settle down, and we used it like right before nap time. So story time, nap time, they were done. they were they were done. They were asleep.
mm,
And then I was like, oh, but cousin, I am now having a hard time waking them up, right? I'm like, okay, it's time to wake up now. And she goes, don't worry, just put some peppermint in the diffuser when it's time to get up.
mm,
And it worked like a charm,
mm,
right? So all those things about experimenting and learning things, it was just so good.
mm,
And she's like you, she has a very calm sense about herself, and she's always like, that exploring, and she's very into the stillness. She will watch the sunset and sunrise and things like that. So I love it. Um, you mentioned hidden treasure within. How can
mhm.
someone begin uncovering that treasure when life feels overwhelming?
Ha. I'm always coming back to being still. Because this is, imagine like when typhoons come, right? And the storm and everything's turning around. But the middle of the typhoon is actually very still. What we really need to do is, even though our surroundings or environment seems very crazy, we need to get into the center and found that peace. And once you get into that stillness within, you'll be able to start explore. When you start exploring, you'll be able to look at like unboxing the treasure box, because I believe we all been given different unique gifts, whether it's spiritual gifts or natural talent. We all have it within us, but it's just a matter of time or resources we invest in it to turn it into our real strengths. Unfortunately, a lot of people hasn't realized they've got all these wonderful weapons or treasure in the box, so they never open it. And my role as a coach is to have different ways to help them to explore. Like it could be through some powerful questions. It could be asking them to envision a future they want to see themselves in. Because imagination is so important. People without vision, they don't know where they're heading towards. So once they can see a clear vision, their personal or professional life, what that's look like, how does that make them feel, the more excited, the better. Because those excitement or
Wow.
emotion invest in it, or trying to awaken those those things that they may not notice themselves. And even a bit of reflection looking back into what delights them in the past, or what other people have said they're naturally great at that they're not even realizing. Before I
Mm-hmm.
became one of my friends told me, we had a coffee chat in a cafe, and afterward I received a text message from her, and she said, the way how you asked me question really got me think deep. It's like, oh, that is interesting. I didn't even realize that was my superpower or hidden talent. But now I'm thinking about it. It's my natural curiosity about people and my love of people that I want to see them flourish led me to asking those type of questions. And this is the fundamental skills to become a coach, asking powerful questions and listening without judgment.
Yes, so excellent. That is so good. It's like And if you were not practicing what you're talking about being still and, you know, walking the walk, right? You would be rushed. You wouldn't have the time to listen or ask the questions because there's been, too many times when people just are in and out of a conversation. They just, it seems so surface. There's no deep, meaningful conversations anymore. People are just like, okay, hi, bye, how are you? Good. And I'm out.
Mm,
So, as a coach, that is so good because you recognize that and you actually not just teach it, coach it, but you live it because you have
mm,
to be in that stillness. You have to be in that place where you can listen and you
mhm,
can think of those, creative questions for your clients. That is so
mm,
good. So very, very good. And
mm,
in the health and healing, speaking of thriving without sacrificing the well being, what practices keep you balanced emotionally, spiritually, and physically? I know we spoke about the things that you've done before, but what are some other things that you do personally?
mm. For me is having rest. It's funny because rather than keep doing on things, I think I'm learning how to set a good boundary between work and rest. This is a like when you're working full time like employee, it's quite easy for you to okay, my working hours 9 to 5 or 9 to 6, and the rest of time is for myself. But when you're working self-employed like myself right now, there's a temptation that you want to keep working more and more. You felt like then you can achieve more. But however,
Hmm.
what I'm believing as someone, we are walking in the presence of God, and the last thing we want is we run away with our own thing and we forgot about who's the provider. And often we are taking times to rest, is showing we are not the one in control. We are not using our own strength to achieve things. And we're acknowledging that is God the Almighty who provide everything that we have had. So for me, one of the constant reminder I need to put myself is I would love to keep at least one day not working a week because of like Sabbath, right? And I would like to have a day that I spend with my friends, my beloved one, my fiance, and serving at church, and it's just connecting with people because this is so important for our well-being. And when I coach, a lot of time when I heard about leaders feeling exhausted or at the border of being burned out, my first question is, have you kept a day of rest a week? And normally it's no.
Hmm.
Be- People sometimes forgot the importance of rest, and it's so important to reset. I myself included. Sometimes we will have class on the weekend, and then I keep going on the week. By the time hit like Wednesday or Thursday, I feel so tired. And I was like, oh yeah, because I haven't even rested on the weekend. I've been every single day I've been working for a couple of days, and I can observe my effectiveness just plummet. But at the end of the day, it's not only about the effort you put in, it's about the outcome you produce. And without rest, there's no clarity. Without clarity, you're not making decisions with confidence. And actually, it's a knock-on effect. And it's not a wise investment as well. So I will believe one of the tips to strive is have a fine integration between work and rest and honor the day of resting.
That is so good. And as as self-employed or as entrepreneurs, a lot of times that's something that we forget because we are running our own business and we have to do everything on our own. So sometimes we forget the fact that we have to create our days off, or like you said, be sure to honor the day, of rest.
Mm.
And the one thing that, even for myself, I have to work, and I made sure that I have, even if I'm called to work more days, I say I have Sunday.
Mm.
It's like I have Sunday, and that's the one day, and I don't like to give it up. But we have this thing where we have to bid for our schedules, and sometimes I can't get the Sunday because I'm not as high up on the totem pole. And when you bid, you get what you get. And so now I'm stuck with this Friday, Saturday, but I was like, it's okay because I can still go to Saturday church, right? I can still attend
Mhm.
service on Saturday, but just that way where it doesn't matter. You have to make a time and not make the excuse of every day is work, every day,
Mm.
because yeah, you're going to end up burning out.
Mm.
So it's, and how can the, especially for like, I know I do it and it shouldn't be, but how can leaders integrate rest and silence without feeling guilty or unproductive? Because I know
Ooh.
I feel guilty and I feel unproductive sometimes if I'm just sitting and, like how you said, to do nothing. And
Mm.
as I'm doing the UPW, even Tony Robbins, as busy as he is, he says he's on the go all the time. And his son is the one that had to teach him to do nothing. And I thought that
Mm.
was pretty amazing because at one point it was him looking at his son as someone who is unproductive.
Mm.
But see how that worked out, right? He looked
Mm.
at his son as unproductive with no work ethics, but then it was his son who taught him that he needed to sit still, do
Mm.
nothing, and learn how to chill.
Mm.
So,
That's
how would
such a
you explain that?
great question. I believe everyone has their own strategy. Um, I have had clients, they're very goal driven. So which means having a day of rest or having a moment of stillness become one of the goals. So they will kind of rip it into their habit. And for me, is I'm very fortunate. My partner is exactly like a lot more chill type of person, and he become my check-in point. Like, are you still working? Is it like he will ask those questions to make me realize actually I need to maintain a good integration between my work life and my personal life. Because particularly I work across different time zones. So sometimes I have client until quite late at night, which means my brain has been quite active. I couldn't fall asleep within so soon after the call. So end up I may not have enough sleep. So he will constantly remind me, say, hey, make sure you got enough sleep, or make sure you're it's so important for you to rest because he has to rest as well. So he'll we will have this type of conversation. I'm very grateful that I have him as my check-in point. But for other people who may have had someone next to you, you can create your own environment, like blocking your diary a day of no meetings, like or telling yourself like which day is my either Sunday or Saturday or even one of the day if you're on shift work that you need to carve time for yourself. And once you have started, your your you'll notice your difference, your physical difference, your mental difference, or even your spiritual difference. I remember I read a book once talking about a pastor was sharing about him was on sabbatical or something. I think he was on sabbatical, and then he was sick for 7 weeks straight. And then God told me because you haven't been taking the bath for how many weeks, so that's why you're sick for that period of time. Almost as a lesson to teach him the importance of rest. And I certainly do not want myself learn my lesson in hard way, and I would love to learn it when I'm still can able to not necessarily saying God has to use it in this way, but it's just quoting from the pastor's story that this is what his personal encounter with God that has been taught him this particular lesson in this way. So I believe it's so important that we all have the awareness that we are not Superman, we are not God. And even when we're sleeping or even when we're resting, God is still in control, like what you said before.
But yes, we are not Superman. We are, you know, we need to know that we are human and God is in control. We cannot take that from him and say, no, I got it. I got it. Even though we want to believe it sometimes. So, yeah, letting go of that guilty feeling of being like, okay, I'm going to sit and take this moment is not a bad thing. And self care is not selfish, you know? So that is a very important part. And that acute awareness is to be aware, and you don't want to push yourself to that point of getting sick because you're not aware of what
Mm-hmm.
you're doing, and then it's too late. But as a
Mm-hmm.
speaker and fluent in 3 languages, that is impressive. How do you connect with diverse audiences and stay aware of their unique needs?
Mm. Another great questions. One of the reasons why I portray myself as a trilingual coach because I believe in the power of the mother tongues. This is something that you would like to use your native language or language you have full fluency in expressing is irreplaceable. And as I'm doing coach, I always ask them, would you like me to use Chinese or English or Mandarin or whatever language that suits you the best? Just that question itself has actually opened up a lot of conversation because as a immigrant, like first generation immigrant in Australia, we would learn we try our very best to fit in or um, to blend in with the culture. But how do we not losing ourselves and identity while we are being part of this community or society? And that is so important. And I think using understanding the language, understanding the culture, and even people who speak Cantonese, if they're from Hong Kong, if they're from Macau, if they're from Control, if they're from Malaysia, Singapore, they're all different. And acknowledging those differences and embracing those differences rather than um, not judging or like commenting. So I used to have a mistake and say, oh, okay, you say, the terminologies we use is quite sometimes different, even for the same word. And I kind of jokingly saying that, oh, okay, this is not the way you say it, or this is the way I should say it. But later I realized it's just different ways of saying it, and there's no right or wrong way of saying it. And just being aware of those cues would help me to connect with audience and they will see me as more accepting and more open to their heritage, to their cultural background as well.
Yeah, that is good. I travel the world, and here in the US, learning a second language is an elective. You don't have to learn any other language. And while I was traveling and continue to travel, I find that in other countries, it is part of the schooling to learn English. It's not an elective. It's not, so I was like amazed that more people are multilingual than in the US. And I'm like, I really wish that we were that way here in America. But I'm like, it's not. And if I had to raise my children over, if I had to raise my children over, I would definitely have them learn a language and become more fluent in another language than just English. Because even though we're Filipino, Spanish, Chinese, my daughter and my oldest son has Samoan, and they have Hawaiian. They don't know the language because it is not required to learn it. But I really wish they would. So it's amazing, and I give you that props that you are that way with your clients, that you're like, oh, which language do you want me to use? That is just so great, and shows the kindness, right? It shows that heart and that kindness to that other person. Like, I I honor you enough to use your language. I don't, but sometimes I feel like in America, I'm sorry for whoever's going to hear me say this right now, but sometimes I think that people in America, we feel like that's all we need to know, because I don't know why, right? It's like, so you learn English because that's all I'm going to talk to you in is in English, which doesn't feel right now that I travel the world, and I work at the airport, and I'm like, I really wish I could say this in your language. So I have a hard time. Like, I'm so sorry. How do you say this? Or, how do you say, you know, remove your shoes or something? But yeah, it's so good. So good that you do that. Um, One more question. What's one revelation God has shown you recently about leading from within? Something that surprised or shifted you?
Wow. Oh, this story made tears. So when I first started my coaching business, I had no, put it that way. I've never thought about I will start my own business, because I've never started in commerce or accounting or finance. And it's purely grace of God. And that He kind of stirred up the environment and kind of nudged me through. So when I finally said, okay, yes, I'm going to give God 6 months time to give it a go and try and see if it works. Like we still want it in control in a way. So I had a deal with God for 6 months. And in July this year, it was my 6 months contract that I have had with God. And with my business, it still hasn't flourished to a stage that I wish it be. I can see things happening, but I'm very impatient. I want to say, oh, why don't I like so and so making, like, having how many clients by how many months, or making how many money, or not necessarily about money. It's about like your effort and whether you've been being visible or being valued. There's a lot of questions in my head. And at that point in time, I've got a headhunter come and find me and give me a very tempting job offer. And it's like, oh, is that a sign that I actually can go back to full-time employment and I can give it a pause? Or maybe I have had enough, like maybe it's time for me to, it wasn't really like a full-on journey. It was just like something for me to try in the meantime. But like what I always do, I take it back to the Lord and I pray. and I asked God, what do you want me to do? If being a speaker, being a coach is your will, which I have quite a few confirmation that this is something that He wants me to do. Show me how. And as I pray, I actually I had a really deep encounter with God. Because as I pray, I can sometimes I see vision when I pray. And in that vision, I saw I'm no longer I'm on a car, but I'm not the one on the driving seat. Because like in life, we always want to be on the driving seat in order to take control. Again, it's about control. But in fact, it was Jesus driving the car. Because I and we had this conversation, and I asked him, where are we going? Because I was in the car with my pajamas. And then he would say, trust me, I'm going to bring you somewhere. And it was in my vision, it was so vivid that he is so chill, so relaxed. And I was so anxious because I'm freaking out. But as we were driving along the way, and we start chatting, and he just asked me, how are you, my dear? Like, of course he was asking in Chinese, in my mother tongue. and and I was like, and he looked at me and asked, the way that it's been looked at, I just start tearing straight away. You know, when someone asks you, how are you? And someone's really look at your eyes and ask you, how are you? It feels so different.
Oh,
And I start tearing straight away. It's like, I'm not good. I'm just literally voting every single word that I have. It's like, I've tried so hard. It's not working. I'm feeling lack of confidence. Every single thing that I can use to criticize myself or sabotage, like I just pour it out. And then I just ask God, is that really what you want me to do? If so, help me and show me. And then I still remember the moment he just looked at me and said, is that something that what you want to do? I was shocked. I said, what? Don't you ask me to start all of this? And then now you're asking me again. And that's one sentence that I still remember very vividly, that Jesus say, I want you to respond not because you felt you ought to or you're being nice. I want you to respond because of love. And I want you to respond you're feeling joy, like feeling joyful in doing so. And that moment, I felt being cared so much. It's not about whether I'm successful or not. It's not even about all the vision that God has given to me. It's about me as a person that Jesus personally and genuinely cared about. And that's what a great leader is. And that changes my heart. I had a deep conversation with him on that day, asking him what's my priority. I always joke around. My business partner is the Holy Spirit and Jesus. Like, this is the way I get my blueprint and my strategy. Like, I just literally got download from the heaven. Rather than, like, of course, we need to equip ourselves with a lot of structure or a lot of framework that we can do because we operate in a physical realm. But as a follower of Jesus, we had a special secret source. We got access to the Holy Spirit. We got access to the spiritual realm. And when we bring the power from the heaven to the earth, that's how transformation, real transformation, is starting to happen. And I think my heart has shifted since my conversation with Jesus in July. And even though there's still challenges coming up, often there's still things that I don't understand. But I that vision, coming back to the vision, because the vivid image that you see, first of all, with your eyes, or with your physical or with your spiritual eye, has brought you back to anchoring point. I feel a lot more in peace. Rather than feeling, like when we chat before, I was a bit flustered, I don't know, or I had a lot of unsure. But now I'm a lot more sure because I had this vivid vision that I know from my beloved, like, Son, Father, and Holy Spirit. And this is so powerful.
That is so good. Oh my gosh, that just touches my heart because right there it shows me, in your conversation with the Lord and in that vision, he wanted to know, what do you want? It's like asking your daughter, right? Asking your child. I'm not forcing you to do anything. I just want to know, what do you want?
Mm.
What do you truly want? And if you don't want this, then I'm okay with that too. You know?
Exactly. Exactly what he said
That is
to me. Because I remember he said, like, if you want to go back to employment, I will give you a job. But if you want to continue on this entrepreneurship journey with me, I will be with you. I promise.
that is so good. I look at that and it's like I can't help but cry because it is. It's not, when you're on this journey, sometimes you're like, I don't see everything happening right away. I don't, I'm not sure what I'm supposed to be seeing. I'm not sure
Mm,
if this is where I'm supposed to be right now,
mm,
and I just, at one point, I was like, Lord, I know, and I know, and I know that you wouldn't lead me here and just let me fail, because that's not who you are. And
exactly.
I trust you. So I'm just going to keep going. And it's who you are touching through me. So sometimes, like they say, we may not see the fruit of our labor. And I said, then so be it. But I really would like to see something, It's like, I really would like to see something because I, sorry, but I'm human, but could you just show me some sort of fruit in my labor? Because it gets weary. And that's the human side, right? And I think, not that I think, but I know that in it all, he has shown us that also, that it's
Mm,
okay that we come to him in our tears. It's okay that we come to him in our weakness and say, can you please show me something? Because I just need to know that I'm on the right path.
mm.
And so that was so good that, he showed you that it's okay, that I'm going to take you in your pajamas and I'm going to show you something. That is so good. Oh, thank you so much for being with us today and leading us on this deeper journey into stillness, and reminding us that strength doesn't always come in a roar, but in the whispers of the one who is greater than us. And he is our solid foundation, the ones that we walk, the one that we have to set ourselves our path on, right? We need to walk in that solid foundation. So thank you so much. Thank you, Sarah. It was just wonderful for you to be here.
Mm.
And friends, as we go along in our week and take time to pause and breathe and remember aloha, just I just want to ask Sarah, is there a way that we can continue to meet with you and connect with you? Is how will our guests, our listeners, you know, connect with you?
Sure. I'm very active on Facebook and LinkedIn. So feel free to look up for me, Sarah, Sarah, my last name TSE, and DM me and say aloha. So I know you're from Michelle podcast, so we can get connected. Or if you want to have like a chat about like coaching, find out more about, if you want to get some clarity in your personal and professional life, also just DM aloha. We can get from there.
Oh, that is so great. Thank you so much. And remember, everyone, aloha is just more than a greeting, it's a way of living. And it's about walking in awareness, leading with love, and allowing God to just refill the spaces that we've been running on empty on. And like Sarah said, He is that stillness. There is no guilt, there is no judgment in that stillness that we walk in. So until next time, keep walking in aloha and remember that your greatest strength is found when you lead from deep. Aloha always and God's blessings.